What's up, horror fans? I'm the Master of Movies Clay from the Hills Maniacs, and today I'm going to be comparing three of the biggest horror movie franchises: Friday the 13th, A Nightmare on Elm Street, and Halloween. So for this video, I wanted to talk about three of my favorite and three of probably the biggest movie franchises, not just in horror, but just in general. People talk about Friday the 13th, A Nightmare on Elm Street, and Halloween all the time. Obviously, Halloween they're still making movies for, and they're just classic characters, and so I basically just wanted to go through and just talk about which one's my favorite of the three, what I call the big three or the main three horror movie franchises. And I call them that because I know there are others like the Child's Play, Hellraiser, Scream, all of those. But for me, it's always been these three as like the main kind of. When I think of like horror movies, I think of Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Halloween. So I kind of wanted to compare these and just talk about which franchise overall I think is the best franchise, whether it be because of characters or plot or whatever, and just kind of compare them and go over that. So I guess I'll start by talking about the main villains of the movies and kind of comparing those three. You have Michael Myers for Halloween, Jason Voorhees for Friday the 13th, and of course Freddy Krueger for Nightmare on Elm Street. And for me, it's just when I think of horror movies, Jason Voorhees is always kind of the first person that pops into my head. Just because I don't know, like I've watched pretty much all of the Friday the 13th movies, even the two remakes. I think there was one or two remakes, however many there were, and Freddy vs. Jason, which I kind of rather enjoyed if you look at it as a solo movie and not part of the other franchises. But Jason has always been, and he's just kind of cool because he just uses whatever. He doesn't really have like a signature weapon in these movies, and he doesn't start in the franchise until the second movie, actually, because it's his mother in the first one. But he doesn't have, and you look at like Freddy Krueger has his glove with the knives on it, and Michael Myers usually uses a knife. Yes, he does use other weapons occasionally, just until he picks up a knife, but in every single movie he will end up with a knife of some kind to kill people with. So for me, Jason, because he's used a harpoon gun, he's just like stomped on people, he's rode over people in a car. He drove one time, I think. He's used like a hook, he's used all kinds of different stuff, a hatchet, a knife, whatever, and he always finds like creative ways to kill people. And I think just some of the way that they do some of these kills in the Friday the 13th movies, I think, are, for me personally, what makes it such a great series. Just because I watch these movies, yes, to be scared, but it's also like, if it doesn't give you that sense of like how strong this person really is as a villain, then really, like, if you say you have a slasher movie and nobody dies in it, then like, what was the point of calling it a slasher movie? Because nobody died. And so that's kind of what you look for in these movies to compare them. And obviously I'm not going to sit here and count up every single kill in every movie to tell you who killed more people in these movies. But for me, Jason has just always been one of those, the big... for me, it's the person I think of first for like horror movies. And although I do like all three of these franchises, Freddy, his is more kind of like unrealistic because it's mostly in your dreams, so all this stuff has to happen while you're asleep, basically, for him to be real. And I guess Jason's is kind of also doesn't make any sense, because if he dies as a child, how's he a grown up and he really doesn't become a zombie until part 6 when he comes back to life. And he's not even in 5 or the first one. So I guess for me, and I guess since they're still making it, I know I'm wearing the Jason mask, and Jason is one of my favorite characters, but I guess technically Halloween for me, I think, would be the best of the three horror movie franchises. Just because I know the original two Halloween movies are my favorite, like, of any franchise. But I love most of the Friday the 13th movies. They're just silly fun, so I have fun with Friday the 13th. But the first two Halloween movies, I mean, especially the first one, is such a classic. And it's just those two. I know the second one isn't canon anymore because of the newer ones, and the fact that they're still making these, take it how you will, good or bad. For me, it's not a bad thing for them to be still making these Halloween movies. I hope they end with Halloween Ends. Like, I don't think you have to go farther than that. But I am okay with these three movies that they made, these new ones. So it would go the original Halloween from 1978, I think it was, to Halloween 2018, which would have been like 40 years or something like that. So I guess it's just because Michael is so iconic, and these movies give you that kind of like sense of like, oh, this could actually happen. Because he is, I know he's not technically a person, he is the personification of evil, I guess, technically, in these movies. But it is something that you could possibly see happen. Not that I want it to happen in real life, but it is, I guess, kind of more realistic. And that's what you look for in movies. Like, something that maybe could possibly happen might, connect better with than something that might not have. Like, you might have a better connection with, say, Batman than you do Star Wars, just because Batman could happen. There could be a billionaire out there that becomes a superhero, something like that. Whereas Star Wars is more sci-fi. So, I guess just looking at overall, like, the characters themselves, the main villains of them, the plots of the movies, Nightmare on Elm Street gets really kind of convoluted down the line. I mean, they all do at some point, but A Nightmare on Elm Street I never got into as much as the other two franchises, and it's just nothing against it. The first one's great, it's a classic, but after that, it was so confusing how things were working, and then, it was just weird for me. I never got into Nightmare on Elm Street. And then Friday the 13th, where it didn't start with Jason, it was a good movie. I've done inconsistencies on some of the Friday the 13th movies, because there's a lot of mistakes or things that don't make sense in those movies. So I've done those. I've done some for Halloween also, but there's a lot that you have to look for when saying whether or not a horror movie is a good movie. And I think all three of these franchises have some good movies, but I think I like more of the Halloween movies than I do Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street, even though I would rather watch Friday the 13th than A Nightmare on Elm Street and some of the Halloween movies. So I'm kind of glad that they're not canon anymore, so I don't have to watch them. I can just go straight from 1 to 2018, which I didn't mind 2018. Halloween Kills, I can see why people are upset about, and Halloween Ends, I didn't mind it. But the first Halloween movie, I think, is my favorite of the three franchises. So for me personally, I think the best of the three movies or franchises would be the Halloween franchise. And it's just, I'm sure a lot of you could agree, some of you might disagree. Just let me know what you think, down in the comments. Do you agree with that pick that Halloween is better than the other two? Do you think that the other two should, one of the other two should be better? And it is an opinion, and let me know if you want me to do comparisons for other horror movie franchises. You know, I could do things like I could add in Scream. You know, I could do Hellraiser, or you know, any of the other franchises that there are for horror. So stay tuned for the rest of Halloween and what else we got going on. If you haven't already, go check out the first videos that we did for Halloween. Oh, and remember, leave the scumbaggery at home, and we'll see you guys in the next one.